Hey, this is Joe Blasco, and I want to talk to you a little bit about how to create the illusion using makeup and light. All right, how to create the illusion of contouring. All right, how to create the illusion of changing the shape of your face. All right, but I'm not going to explain the actual application techniques. I'm first, right now in this video, I'm going to explain to you the theory behind why it actually works. All right, why when you do contouring, why it works. Okay, the first thing you have to understand is that absolutely everything is dependent on light. If we were to turn off all the lights in this room, you would see nothing. But with the lights on, the light comes from the source, right, from the bulb. It hits the surface of my face. It bounces into the eye of the camera, all right, and it registers on the camera, all right? This is exactly what happens in real life when people are seeing you. All right, if you take someone into a very dark room, there's no light there, they're not going to be able to see you. The only reason that you're able to see is because the light comes from the source light, which is the light that gives the greatest amount of luminance upon you, all right, that reflects off of you and goes to the other person's eye. Now, if you're outdoors, that could be the sun, right? If you're indoors, it could be incandescent light or a chandelier, or it could be if you're in a market, it could be the fluorescent lighting, right? The greatest source of light hits you, reflects off of you into their eyes, and they're able to perceive you. They're able to see you. Now, you can play tricks with that light as a makeup artist. This is how you do contouring, all right? Dark colors of makeup will absorb the light that hits you, therefore not reflecting as much out to the other person's eye or to the eye of the camera. Light colors of makeup, light colors of makeup, they will reflect the light that is coming from the source to the eye of the beholder, all right? And so you keep that in mind. Light colors reflect, they jump forward. Dark colors absorb the light, therefore they recede. They do not bounce forward. This is how you can create highlighting and shading, which is the key component to doing actual contouring, all right? Let's say we wanted the top of our nose here to really jump out. Well, what would you do? You would apply a lighter shade of foundation there. What happens? The light hits that, it bounces out, and it becomes a highlight. You want to bring your cheekbones up, you apply a lighter shade of foundation on the tops of your cheekbones. All right? The light hits it, bounces out, and it looks as though you have higher cheekbones. Now, that's highlighting using light and light makeup, all right? Now, you can create contrast by also connecting those highlights with shadows. How do you create a shadow, all right? What is a shadow with makeup? Well, normally it's darker shades of makeup, but you're going to find out that it's really not darker shades of makeup, all right? But for all intents and purposes now, in this video, it would be a darker shade of makeup. In reality, a real shadow, all right? If I were to put my head down like this and to create a real shadow here, see, if I pull this back, there's not really a shadow there. But if I do this and push it down, there is a shadow there because there is a lack of light going into that area, all right? So it becomes darker. But it becomes more than just darker. It becomes a little more gray, all right? So real shadows are not just darker shades of base, all right? They are darker shades of base mixed with a little bit of gray, and then that mixture is mixed into your foundation color to create a custom shading color. All right, now I am going to do very extensive videos explaining all of this so that you really understand the theory And for all intents and purposes, I'm going to turn you all into really good makeup artists. All right, so that you have a technical aspect, a really thorough understanding of the technical aspects of makeup artistry. And you're not just learning off of YouTubers that really have had no true experience or understanding of that kind of makeup artistry. All right, now we're talking motion pictures and television. All right, and oh, no, I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the YouTubers aren't doing a great job. They are. But if you notice, they're using models that are absolutely flawless. They're absolutely beautiful. But what happens if an older woman, somebody in their 80s, sits in that chair? Okay, you have to do a lot of highlighting and a lot of shading and a lot of rejuvenation makeup, and that means that you're going to be creating an illusion using lighter shades of makeup and darker shades of makeup. All right, so now, for instance, if you have an area under the chin here and you need to push this area in, all right, you're going to put a darker shade of makeup here. If you want to push in the cheekbones here so that the highlights are actually accentuated even more on top of the cheekbones, you put a darker shade of makeup here. All right, now you can do a darker shade of makeup along the top side of the nose, just like this. If you want to make the face more slender, you use a darker shade of makeup around the sides of the face. You want to push the ears in slightly, you use a darker shade of makeup on the ears. Now, you want to flatten areas by applying a highlight. Now, we've been talking about shadows. By applying a highlight, that will reflect more light, and by doing that, it flattens those areas. Highlighting in the depressions here, highlighting right here, highlighting right here, highlighting in here, to pull these areas forward. If you have very deep temples, you can apply a highlight in the temple, in the recessed areas of the temples, to bring them forward so that you are creating a much more youthful look. Now, there is a method of making a real looking shadow with makeup. You can't do it using a darker shade of makeup, all right? You can't do it, not realistically. You can argue up and down all you want, but I can tell you it doesn't work, especially if you're going to do color photography. No, it doesn't work. All a darker shade of makeup looks like on somebody's face is a darker shade of makeup. It doesn't look like a real shadow. So let's analyze shadows. You've got two different kinds of shadows. You have cast shadows that, now I'm going to do that. See the shadow on my face? That's a cast shadow caused because my hand has gotten in the way of the key light. All right? So it's casting a shadow on my face. A natural shadow is a shadow that occurs naturally on the face whenever less light is permitted to go into specific areas of the face. Nasolabial folds, depressions under the eyes, etc., etc. All right, so those are natural shadows. All right, now you can accentuate those areas. For instance, if you can accentuate natural shadows, which will make you look better. For instance, you would accentuate the natural shadow that falls on the sides of the nose, and that will give you a much nicer, straighter aquiline bridge to your nose. But you certainly don't want to accentuate the shadows that are under your eyes or the shadows of the nasolabial folds. You want to highlight those to bring them forward. Okay, so now, creating a real looking shadow. We know that there's cast shadows. That's cast shadow, see? Cast shadow. The natural shadows are in your face. And let's say you want to create shadows to put along the side of your nose. You want to create shadows to put under your cheekbones. You want to create a shadow color to put under your jawline, but you want it to look like a real natural shadow. What do? Well, you take a darker shade of base. You have your colors laying out in front of you. You've got your foundation that you're using. You have a darker shade of base, about 4 shades darker or 5 shades darker. Then you have brown, okay? You have brown. All right, now, you can add that brown to the darker shade of base to even deepen it slightly, all right? Or if you don't have a darker shade of base, you can take that brown and add it to your foundation color. and that will create a darker shade of base. All right, so either way, you want your regular base color and you want a darker base sitting in front of you. But there is one more thing that you need, okay? All right, when you create this shadow, you're going to mix that shading color, that darker shade of base, with your foundation color, all right? So that your shadow is base tone related. But there's one thing that we've discovered when we switched from black and white film to color photography, and that is this. Real shadows are not only darker than the surrounding skin, but they are also more gray. So if you want your shadow to look real, you will make your base darker by adding brown to it, and then you will take that shading color that you've created and you will add a tiny bit of gray to it. All right, now, how do you get the gray? Well, you can take one of the gray eyeshadow colors. All right, you can even take some of the powdered eyeshadow colors and scrape a little bit of the gray from that. You can take a gray ultimate, all right? You can take any of our gray colors of ultimates or eyeshadows, mix it ever so slightly into that foundation, or you can take a smidgen, a tiniest little bit, like a pinpoint of black, and mix that into the color that you've made of the base and the brown, okay? That little tiny bit of black will add just the right amount of gray, and it will then make that into a real looking shading color, all right? That's how you make a shading color. Now, how did we discover that? Well, back in the old days when we were shooting in black and white photography, we could use a darker shade of base because everything was in grayscale. All the colors were gray, all right? Everything was gray. So lighter shades of color would be lighter gray. Darker shades of color would be darker gray. So if you used a dark color on the sides of your face, you could even use cheek color, red, all right, on the sides of the face, and it would be darker. And in black and white, it would photograph as a shadow, all right? But that doesn't work in color. In color, it has to look real, all right? And that's how we discover, after analyzing what real shadows, true shadows actually are comprised of, that's how we came about to make our shading colors in my line. In my line, we have light skin shading and we have dark skin shading. And guess what? They're already pre-mixed. So everything that I've just taught you, all of that theory, you don't have to worry about. Because if you are light skinned, you go to the light skin shading. You can put it on straight, or you can mix it with your base. If you are dark skinned, you can use the dark skin shading. Put it on straight, or you mix it with your base. All right, now, one great thing for African American colors is that their colors, the colors we make for African American women of color, go very, very dark. We have colors that are almost completely black, which can actually be used as shading colors by, let's say you're using honey as a foundation, or twilight, okay, as a foundation. You can take ebony, all right, and mix that into your foundation, and it's just dark enough, and it's got just amount of gray in it to make that foundation color a perfect shading color, all right? So there you have it. There's a little 101, all right, with shading and highlighting. And what is this called? This is called chiaroscuro. Chiaroscuro. This is the Latin word for light and shade. Chiaro is light, and scuro is shade or dark. So you have just been given Chiaroscuro 101 from Joe Blasco. Totally unscripted.